Yeah.
All right, are we in?
We're in.
Yeah.
Let's get out the papers. Yes, 2 papers. There's 2 papers. Bum. You know what? Please take one and pass. Please take one and pass.
Thank you. Just one?
One going that way, one going the other way.
Just one paper.
2 papers. There's one going that way too.
That
way.
It goes from 1 through 6.
Mary, if I gotta take that.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Copies this week, huh?
So we are going to be discussing a very controversial issue that took place in the 1500s. But in order to set up the story, certain background is necessary. Certain background is necessary. So we begin with, we'll start this way. Go back to 1492, the great expulsion from Spain. The Yidden were given 3 choices by King Ferdinand, Queen Isabella, and they were working together with the Inquisition. Actually, there were Yidden that made the Shidduch. Before that time, there were numerous kingdoms in Spain. Yidden were involved in the Shidduch of Prince Ferdinand and Princess Isabella, hoping that if they make the Shidduch, it'll bode good for the Jews. Unfortunately, the Abish had other plans. Queen Isabella was a fanatic, a Christian, and to the point that she worked together with the Inquisition to rid the land of all infidels. But out of Rahmanas, they gave the Yidden 3 options. One of them is you could die, free of charge. You could convert, or you could flee. You could flee, leave your money behind, which was a certain level of Rahmanas, because before then, during the Crusades, the Christians didn't give the Yidden that option. It was either the sword or the cross, right? There was no option to run for your life. But here, the Inquisition officially, they opened the doors and said, whoever wants to leave, get out. Tens of thousands of Yidden left. Where did they go? They went everywhere. Many of them went south, just underneath to Morocco. And many went east to Greece, to Salonika, became a huge Yiddish city in Saloniki at that point. Many went to Turkey, Mitzrayim, Eretz Yisrael, and others went in other areas of Europe. Many Yidden, of course, stayed behind, and on the outskirts, they took upon themselves Christianity. They were known as crypto Jews, secret Jews. Marano means a pig. Crypto Jews is means wealthy Jews, right? No, it means hidden Jews, concealed Jews. Now, there was a certain individual by the name of Rabbi Yaakov Beirav. Rabbi Yaakov Beirav, he was born in Spain in 1474-75. So he was a teenager at the time of the expulsion, about 17 years old. And he bounced from the country with his family. They went down south. They went to Morocco, specifically to the city of Fez. Within a few months, Fez had 5,000 Jewish families, roughly. Pretty much all coming south from Spain. And when he was 18, so a year later, he was appointed to be the rabbi. This Yankov Beirav was appointed to be the rabbi of 5,000 Yidden or 5,000 families at the age of 18. And he writes about this in one of his letters. He says, I didn't even have a beard. Or he says, I didn't have chasim zaken. I didn't have a full beard. And he says, the people that were with me, there were big chachamim there. It wasn't just a city of Faraya Yidden. He said, lots of big chachamim that came from Spain. But they appointed me to be the Rav. He was there for a number of years. And then he slowly made his way east through the countries of North Africa, Algeria. He probably passed through Tunisia. He set up shop in Egypt for a bit, and ultimately, in around the year 1516, he goes to Tzfas. Rabbi Yankov Beirav went to Tzfas, and he founded a yeshiva, a very important yeshiva, one of the most famous yeshivas of the day. Okay. There was another very important yeshiva of the day in Saloniki in Greece. By the way, Saloniki in Greece became so populated by Jews, the Yidden took control of the port. The port was closed in Shabbosim for hundreds of years till the Holocaust. It was closed on Shabbos.
Wow.
Right, the Yidden Mamish. And one of the escapees from Spain, his name was Yosef Taitachak. He was an incredible goyin, and he opened up a yeshiva there in Saloniki. So in the early 1500s, he had this great yeshiva in Greece, where the biggest people, Reb Moshe Alshich learned over there, Reb Shmuel Dimodino, the greatest goyinim of the time, all went to Greece to learn there. In fact, in Reishis Chochmah, one of the great Kabbalah Sfarim written just a generation later, he speaks about the legendary Rosh Yeshiva and about the pious acts of Rabbi Yosef Taitachak. He used to sleep in the back of Zal. He took out a bench and would sleep for a couple hours, and then he would get up until Chatzos. He lived and breathed yeshiva, and he was a genius. Rabbi Yosef Kaira, he was 4 years old at the time of the expulsion. You'll see where I'm getting to with all this. We're trying to paint the picture. Rabbi Yosef Kaira was 4 years old at the time of the expulsion. He and his family ran, and they went east. Many times he actually learned in this yeshiva of Yosef Taitachik as a bocher. So even of Yosef Kaira, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, where was he as a bocher? He was in this legendary yeshiva in Greece. But later, Rabbi Yosef Kaira moved to Turkey, and he opened up his own yeshiva. And he had great Talmidim. The Alshich was there. Rabbi Shloime El-Kabatz was hanging out in Turkey. And one day, Rabbi Yosef Kaira hears that in Svas, there's a yeshiva with Rabbi Yankov Bey Rav. You know, it's once in a generation, such a thing. He told his students in Turkey, that's it. I've had enough giving shiurim. I'm done already. How many shiurim can you give already? I want to listen. I'm heading to Tzfas. I'm becoming a student again. So when his Talmidim heard about that, they said, if Rabbi Yosef Kaira is bouncing from Turkey heading to Tzfas, it must be something's going on in Tzfas. So the Alshich, Rav Shlomo El-Kabatz, they all left with him. And a huge entourage of Go'ene Eretz, the greatest scholars of the time, all went to Tzfas. You're talking now 1520, 1530, that time period, that Tzfas just got a huge
Influx.
of not stam people, but you're talking about the greatest poskim, the greatest the scholars of the time. So that's what's going on in Tzfas at that time. There happens to be another group of people in Tzfas who are not the greatest scholars. What was their story? How'd they get there? What happened was in 1492, many Yidden stayed behind to part with your gelt and travel to who knows where. For many, they felt it was suicidal to leave everything behind and just go with your clothes on your back. Where are you going? What you're going to do? And many of them, they weren't convinced that the Inquisition really means mamash business. But over the next couple of years, they saw after many people were burnt alive, lots of individuals felt it's a matter of time until I'm chapped. We got to get out of here. And over the next couple decades, many Yidden left Spain and so too in Portugal. We know in 1492, many Yidden skipped over to Portugal. But in 1497, in Portugal, they made the same rule that you have to leave. So there were Yidden that had lived for a number of years as Moranos. Some for a few years, some for 10, some for 20 years, some for a couple decades, until they realized, Bo Mayim Ad Nafesh, that they're going to be killed, the Inquisition's on their back, and they escaped. Many Yidden, they held it out, but when they knew the Inquisition was spying on them, they escaped. Many of them came to Tzfas. Since Tzfas, you had like this lopsided community. You had some people, you had the greatest Go'anim of the time, and you had Yidden that had lived as Christians for 30 years. There was a major divide. In fact, Yidden that had left at 1492 looked at the other Jews and said, you guys are cowards. You caved because of the cash, and now 30 years later you come to join us? No. They didn't want to marry into them. They said, you lived as Christians for 3 decades, 2 decades, because of the money. No. They were looked at as secondary Jews. So these Yidden, this is the welcome that they get after, they finally left. This is the Bruchim Aboyim they get. So what did they want? Now, this is very important history over here. What did they want? A fascinating thing. They wanted that a Bezin should give them Malchus. The halach is if somebody does Naveir that carries Koris is a severe punishment. But if Bezin gives you Malchus, it's a loophole. It'll be mechaper for the Koris. It says in Masechta Makos, all Chayvei Krisus. You can't get punished twice for the same crime. So that's that would right. In other words, even the malchus is less severe, but it's a loophole. If you get the malchus, you're saved from the chorus. So many of these Yidden.
One time off?
Well, you're right. Well, it's you're right. It's a good question. Good question. But many of these Yidden had how many Yom Kippurs did they eat? How many Shabbosim did their wives didn't go to mikveh for 30? They forget it was all done. They basically had abandoned Yiddishkeit. Well, they were oinsim, but the other Yidden said oinus. They gave you were given a chance to leave oinus because of money. It's a chatzi oinus, but where was your dedication? You came here anyways. You could have come 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So what they wanted was that many of them felt that they have tons of krisis looming over their heads. They want to get whipped in order that they should be purified, absolved. They should be purified, atoned, and they wanted a new beginning, a new life, and particularly that all the other Yidden should look at them. B'chlal there's a halach. If somebody does an avera that he deserves malchus, until he gets malchus, it's called a rasha. But once he does, the pasuk says, "V'nikla achicha le'inecha." Once your brother gets whipped, he becomes your brother. So that's what. So the Yidden Pashut, they wanted a one-time whip. It'll hurt for a few days, but then it's a new beginning.
Status. Once you're out, you're like anybody else.
Right, exactly. So they approached Rabbi Yaakov Bei Rav, who was.
Get malchus on every Kippur?
I don't know how many cruces that little thing actually takes care of. It's kind of to remind you what you deserve and therefore do tshuva. If somebody does emes tshuva, you can get rid of all your chayve cruces too.
Right.
Even though the Gemara says in Yuma, if you're over mitzvah saseh, tshuva is enough. If you're over loy saseh, you need tshuva plus Yom Kippur. If you're over a chorus, you need tshuva Yom Kippur and Yisurim. But that's only if you do tshuva out of fear. If you do tshuva out of love, your avera becomes a mitzvah. So there is no remnant, there's no roshim anymore. Tshuva out of ava, you don't need any yisurim at all. But who's to judge that these Maranos did real tshuva, and therefore they wanted to get these malchus. So here's the problem: in order to get malchus, you need a bezdin, and the way it works is like this. There's something called Smicha these days. Smicha these days just means that if somebody has the certificate, it means that they were found to be expert, in about 5% of Shulchan Aruch, or right. they learned once through the their teacher gives them reshus to paskin. Back in the day, it meant much more. What do I mean? Let me elaborate. The Eibishter gave Moshe Smicha. He endowed Moshe with the power. He called Moshe a real judge. Moshe in turn placed his hands on Yeshua. That's why it was called Smicha. Smicha means to place your hands. He placed his hands on Yeshua and he gave over his wisdom. And Yeshua did the same thing to his students. And the same thing happened generation to generation for a long time. Past the first Beis HaMikdash, past the second, through the Tanoim, into the times of the Amoraim, until the times of Abaye V'Rava. So you're talking about the year 350, 400 of the Common Era. Now, proper smicha can only be given in Eretz Yisrael. In that year, in the 4th century, the Romans had tightened their noose around Yidden in Eretz Yisrael, and they basically closed all the good yeshivas. All good Bochum went to Bavel, so who was left in Eretz Yisrael? The type of Talmid Bnei Yisrael weren't fitting to receive smicha, so the whole chain finished. It ended, gegangen. If you have real smicha, you're a real judge, and you're what the Torah calls Elikim. The Torah gives the name Elikim to judges only if you have real smicha. The Gemara also calls you a mumcha, you're an expert, and the authority you have is like this. First of all, you can do capital punishment if you have a bezdin of 23 people that have smicha, or malchus, or any knossos. No. So when it comes to death penalty, you might need a Beis HaMikdash. Yeah, you need a Beis HaMikdash for death penalty, but not for malchus and not for knossos. Is a big one. Right. But that might be only for misa. But for knossos, any monetary fines, a punitive measure, not a loan or a damage that you actually owe, but any knossos, which is a big amount of the monetary law in Torah, a bezdin can only paskin that if they have smicha. Also Kiddush HaChodesh, the whole calendar who made the calendar the way we have it? Hillel, but the second Hillel. He lived in the times of Abai Verova. When he saw that Smicha is stopping, so there no longer will be a Bezdin that can be Mekadosh al Pi Hariyah, he created this calendar. So, going back to the 1500s, you have a group of these Moranos who are living in Sfas. They turn to the Yankov Beirav and they say, Rebbe, whip us. They're begging, And the Rebbe says, I wish I could. I'd love to. I can't. I'm not a Bezdin. If I whip you, it's just going to be stamapach. It won't have any halachic significance. Unless we can restore the smicha. Unless we're somehow able to restore the smicha. And Rabbi Yankov Beirav is going to go on a quest to restore the smicha. He will reach major opposition from the chief rabbi of Jerusalem and the chief rabbi of Egypt, as we will see. But with this
Beautiful.
Introduction.
With this introduction, we will go to number one.
It's funny that, like, literally, we never heard of any of this stuff.
I know. I haven't even heard
never-
one
I
part
never
of this
heard-
introduction.
Hold on. Number one is going to blow you away. That's why I started with it.
Chidah.
This is the Chidah in his sefer. He wrote a sefer called Shem HaGedolim. The Chidah, he was traveling. He spent his whole life traveling. He was once coming to Italy, and there was some pandemic going around, so they quarantined him for a number of. He was on a ship. They quarantined him for a while. I think it might have been a couple of weeks, maybe even a month. He couldn't come on the mainland. He was quarantining. He said, I barely had any sforim with me. I had some paper and a pen, so I wrote down. I made the book Shem HaGedolim from memory. Wow. Shem HaGedolim has literally hundreds of thousands of details of all thousands of tens of sforim that had been written through the ages, where they were printed, when they were printed, how many pages they have. Going through hundreds and hundreds of personalities that we've never heard of. We don't even know anyone that's heard of anyone that's heard of these people. And the Chidah writes about them.
Where did he have this library?
When the Chidah would see something, he would remember it. His memory was from a different world. And he was also, very clever as well, and he was a holy man. So the Rebbe actually once quoted him by Fabrengen. He often did, but the Rebbe once quoted his name, and then the Rebbe said, and it's bavust, it's known he was a grosser mensch, even like an advertisement, But in fact, the Rebbe once has a whole sikha discussing a stira between two statements of the Chidah and two different svarim of his, and a whole explanation. Well, it was a whole sikha. Anyhow, I told the sikha. Al Kaponim says the Chidah. He was a Sfardi, yes. But he was a humble man. He didn't write about himself Sfardi Tahov, Samachtas. He didn't, Vadi Yosef was a the Chidah. The Sfardim should be very, very proud of the Chidah.
He's not a Sfardi.
That's Paul. He has no right. Come in.
Who Iran? Who went to Iran? Anyhow, I did not mention Iran.
No, his family.
Yeah, but Iran is not Sfardim. But you know why? I'll tell you something interesting. Rabbi Vadia Yosef once met the king of Spain years ago. And the king of Spain asked Vadia Yosef, why do so many Yidden call themselves Sfardim when they never stepped foot in Spain? Not them, not their ancestors. You have anyone that's not Ashkenazi is a Sfardi. These people never in Spain, they're in Iran. The king of Spain asked Savadia Yosef, why do they call themselves Spanish? Savadia said a fascinating thing. He says they're called Sfardim because they follow the Rambam who's from Spain. Anyone that follows the Rambam as the source of halacha, in contrast to Tosfos, is called a Sfardi. That's what Savadia Yosef said. A very interesting.
Follow the Rambam now.
Alright, so they're also from so they're also
No?
so they could also be thrown into. Hey, that's what Avadia told the king of Spain. All right, we have lots to do. So says the Chidah number one.
Yeah.
There's somebody called Rabbi Yehuda, the son of the Rosh. The Rosh started off in Germany. He had to run for his life. The government was after him. They took his Rebbe, the Maram of Rottenburg, and he died in jail. The Rosh fled at the end of the 13th century. In the end of the 1200s, he comes to Spain, and he meets the Rajba in Barcelona. The Rajba spends a week behind closed doors with the Rosh. The Rajba decides this man knows how to learn, and he says, I'll get you a job. And he gets in touch with Toledo. Toledo was roveless, and the Rosh, that's how he got his job in Toledo. The Rosh passed away. He left a son, Rabbeinu Yehuda, who became the next rabbi in Toledo. So says the Chida, Achiv, he is the brother of the Tur, plus Chasnoi, plus the son-in-law of Rabbeinu Yankiv Bal HaTurim. So he must have married his brother's daughter. The Kosav Sefer Yuchsin. Now Sefer Yuchsin was written by Rabbi Avram Zakuta, who was a friend of Christopher Columbus, a great Yiddish astronomer, about 500 years ago, a little bit more. And he wrote a very important Yiddish work called Sefer Yuchsin. And it says in Daf Lamed Beis, you see the Chidas quoting the page, it could be he wrote this also from memory. Page 32 in the Amsterdam print, Shebizman Sora, that it was horrific. There was some attack from the Goyim against the Yidden in Toledo. Hargu Atzmam, Rabbeinu Yehuda v'Ishtoi. Rabbeinu Yehuda and his wife, the Chamoisai, and his Shviger, the wife of the Balaturim, they all killed themselves in Tulitulu, that's Toledo. Now this connects to a shiur we had a couple of weeks ago about taking your own life before the Goyim force you to convert, but that's not why I'm quoting it. You'll see why. Let's read what the Chidah says. V'sham over there, Hevi Sefer Yuchsin, he brings Mishem Mordechai in the name of the Mordechai. The Heichad Dayor, if you're afraid, She'eni Yochlam Ben Esoyin, if you're afraid that the Goyim will capture you and force you to convert and you won't have the guts to choose the bullet, then you're allowed to kill yourself before. This we already saw. The Kosav and that sheyesh lo raya chazok al zeh. Now he has a strong raya for this from a certain story in Ksuvas, and this is why we're quoting this. The Gemara in Ksuvas Daf Kuf Kimel has the wildest story. On the day that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi passed away, a bas kol came down from heaven and said, "Whoever was by the levaya, the passing of Rebbe, is mezuman to go straight into Olam Haba." There was a certain launderer, Hahu Kaibus, who he used to spend every day by Rebbe. Punkt that day he wasn't there, and he heard that he heard about this basko, that he missed the opportunity. He was so distraught, he went on top of a building and he jumped. So Hahu Kaibus shehipil atzmei me'agag, he threw himself off the roof. Al shaloi zachal izdaman, he wasn't zeicher to be present in the Ashkafte by the passing of Rebbe, and he missed the baskol that said mezum l'chayil ma'abel, like it says in Perikanois and Ksuvas Kuv Gimel. Ad kan divrei harav Sefer Yuchsin ayin shom barichas, see there barichas. So the Sefer Yuchsin is saying, what's the pshat in the laundry that jumped off the roof? No idea. What's the shaychus of that story to being able to kill yourself before the goyim get hold of you? Very hard to understand. But let's continue. The story is something else completely. The guy jumped off because he was depressed. It's a different story completely. Now, even though that we saw this now, we're educated consumers. We know the Maran, the Beis Yosef, and Bedek Habayis, Sim Kufnot Zayin. We saw this in the shiur we had by the Crusades. Kosav the Yesh Oisrin. The Beis Yosef says, some people say you're not allowed to take your life. You have to let the goyim do it. Ra'isi, but I saw Laharitva in his Chidushim Ta'avodah Zarah that is Matir Mishem Rabbeinu Tam. We discussed Rabbeinu Tam's opinion as well, who's Matir. V'kosav shekvar ha'razokin v'gdol etzerfas chitur aloch la'maisa. And the Ritva says that, listen, Rabbeinu Tam was the old sage, he already allowed it, and the great people of France have already done this halacha l'maaseh. Fine. Continues, Ma'arimat, the Rabbeinu Yosef Mitrani. So he's, we're actually talking about his father later in this year. The Ma'arimat, also known as the Maharich, Rabbeinu Yosef Mitrani. He was a very, very important figure in the end of the 1500s, early 1600s. In his Chidushim L'Ksuvas, in the end of Perek HaNois, Kosav, he says, no, the tam da'ahu katzor, the reason for it probably means the kovis. When that launderer jumped off, shehipalatzmoi, the fact that the launderer committed suicide, hainu al shechilul Shabbos v'nir tzaloi. What happened, the launderer didn't jump off the roof because he was depressed. He had been mechalul Shabbos. And if somebody's mechalul Shabbos, what punishment do they deserve? If they did it on purpose, Bezin would have killed them. Bezin won't do it. You could do it to yourself. You can give yourself whatever psak Bezin would have given to you, and it will atone. This is the psak of the Marit. And he says, that's the pshat in the story of the launderer. He had been mechalul Shabbos, and Bezin would have killed him, had there been Eidim, had he been warned, etc. And the execution of Bezdin would have atoned. Well, guess what? You could do it yourself.
Yeah, if other people did it, they would be chayav. What's the?
It's not suicide. You deserve to die. You need to die. You need to die for atonement.
So if I go to my friend and tell him, like, meaning.
No, you can't.
can't.
No, you
I
can't.
do
You
it
can't
myself.
exactly do it yourself. Yeah. There are times, if Bezdin was mechayiv someone missing, they ran away, then anyone has the right to take a gun and shoot. There are times that anyone can kill, but that's only if Bezdin paskin the person's chayiv misa, and the guy flees,
You're deputized.
then everybody has the right.
Everybody's deputized.
Yeah, yad, you know,
The right or
yad
not?
kola on bachrin, what?
Should they? Or they have the right to?
Well, listen, so if you think the guy's innocent, nonetheless, his
No,
chayiv
I'm just
misa.
asking. It's like a mitzvah on you to go out there and kill the guy.
Or you just
Who
call
asked you?
you call the number and say I spotted him going, you know, and that's it.
$10,000 reward for any.
V'chein customer B'tzalel B'tzalel Ashkenazi wrote the Shittum Mekubetzes, writes the same thing, and it's actually from the Yerushalmi. V'chasset shekein sham pirabena kloinim is b'Yerushalayim. That was that's another, and it's in the Yerushalmi as well that the launderer had been Mechalel Shabbos. Not everybody. That story of the launderer is a major debate. The Yerushalmi says he was Mechal. He did a full Chil Shabbos. I don't know. He cooked the face. He lit a fire.
So
what was the connection to hearing the gospel?
Right.
The
Nothing to do
gospel
with
would
the
have saved
gospel?
him.
No.
That from being, what's it called? So
Yeah.
instead,
He
he
realized,
jumped
oh,
in.
had I been there, I would have been atoned for
been
Shabbos.
absolved.
Now
I gotta
I
take
gotta
care of
try.
myself.
I gotta do it myself.
Why'd I have to do it right then?
Yeah. Could have
Yeah,
waited a
this
couple
time
years.
the whole story together. You know, when he realized he missed the opportunity, he probably felt such a yush that he jumped.
Also,
But
he
his
didn't know if he would
jumping
do
was
it
justified.
again. Like 5 years later, he might not have the guts to do it.
Right.
And then he said, he hit while he was hot.
Right.
He was inspired.
Anyhow, so this is the psak of the Marit. This is the psak of the Marit and the Shittum Mekubetzes. Fine. The thing is, though, the way it appears in Talmud Bavli, in the Yerushalmi it says he taka broke Shabbos. The way the story is in the Bavli Masechta Ksuvos, there's no mention of him breaking Shabbos. It's just out of depression that he missed the Basko. So, the Shavus Yankiv, Rabbi Yankiv Reishi, one of the great poskim, he passed away in the early 1700s. He writes that nonetheless, even though really he shouldn't have, the Shavus Yankiv also agrees to the Marit that if you're Takar Chayiv Miss, you're allowed to do it yourself. But the Shavus Yankiv says the way the Bavli records the story of the launderer, he didn't break Shabbos. He did it out of depression. But says the Shavus Yankiv, since he did it out of tshuva, it was still mechaper. So he takes it pretty far. There happens to be others who believe that his whole jumping was a mistake. Rabbi Yankiv Emden says that he fell off the roof. He slipped off the roof, v'nofal. He went on the roof to get fresh air. He was losing his mind for the fact that he missed the Basko. But he fell off the roof. The Ben Yoda said it was a very low roof. He just wanted to jump and break his arm, but unfortunately he landed on his head and he died. So there are others that learn. So there's other ways of learning this. There's lots of shittas here. According to the Yerushalmi, he was taka chayiv misa, and therefore he was justified, like we saw in the Marit. The Bavli doesn't mention that. So Yankiv Emden says it was he slipped. The Ben Yoda says it was he didn't plan to die. It was a small. He just wanted to give himself a bit of a patch. And the Shavus Yankov holds that be'emes is taka mutter. I should probably to rephrase that.
Mutter because
That not be'emes taka mutter, but because he did it for kapara, it's still mechaper. His intentions were good. It's not considered suicide. Fine.
nothing to do with Shabbos.
Right, because the Bavli doesn't mention that. Now, continues the Chidah. Umikan ksas raya, if you learn the story of the launderer, not like the Sefer Yuchsin who compares it to Rabbeinu Tam's story of killing yourself by the Crusades, but you learn that you're allowed to take your life for kapara. There's a raya, the shiny mishum tshuva lechaper avanosav. From here you see that you're allowed to do suicide l'shem tshuva to atone for your sins. U'ku'uvda, like the story, the Yokim ish tzreiris bebreshis rabba. What's the story over there? Very quickly, Yokim ish tzreiris, the Medrash says, he was a nephew of Yosef ben Yoezer ish tzreida that we mentioned in Pirkei Avos. And Yosef ben Yoezer ish tzreida was taken captive by the Romans, and they were about to kill him publicly on a tree. And his nephew, this fellow, Yokim ish tzreiris, was frei at the time, and he walked past his uncle, and he started laughing. He said, he was actually on his horse. He said, "Look at the horse that my master gave me. Look at the horse that your master gave you." You know. So his uncle said, "Listen, if the Eibusher gave you such a life, although you anger him, imagine the life God's going to give me." So he's never said, "What?" Well, yeah, take a look at the life God's giving you. So the uncle flipped it around and said, if this is what's happening to me, who does the will of God, what's going to happen to you, who angers God? So the Medrash says the words entered the heart of the nephew like snake venom. And the nephew went and he killed himself. He did all 4 Mrs. Besdin. It says he set up a whole thing. You could check it up. He arranged wood.
Rube Goldberg machine.
He arranged a pile of wood and stone around it. He set it on fire. He had a noose, and he put a sword also on the floor. He made a noose for himself at the top. He jumped in the noose. He strangled himself. When the fire got strong enough, it burnt the noose. He fell on the sword. Then he got burnt in the fire. All 4 missing.
Could have all happened at the
No,
same
no,
time.
no, no,
4 different
no,
ways
no.
of dying. You can make it.
No, they all assisted in the death. In other words, when he was by the noose, before he mamish died, the noose
Before he
tore
timed
because
it
of
that
the
the
fire.
fire should
Anyhow,
through the.
but upon him, he got all 4 misses.
Mousetrap game. Where everything.
Anyhow, and Rabbi Lazar ben Dodai, fine, shh. Let's go a line later. Abo Marash Yafa, Reb Shmuel Yafa Ashkenazi. If you want to know, does anybody disagree and hold that such suicide is forbidden? Yes. Not everyone agrees it's mutter. Reb Shmuel Yafa in Yefei Toyar on the Bereishis Rabbah there Kosav the Eina Rasha V'chulu Mishum Tshuva. The Yefei Toyar of Shmuel Yafa Ashkenazi in the 1500s was a great Sephardish Pesach and great Mefarish. He vehemently holds you can't do suicide even for tshuva. So although we brought many places into the Amatir, he disagrees. But Varav Shvus Yankiv that we mentioned, Dochat Varav. The Shvus Yankiv says the Shvus Yankiv was later, and he says no, you're allowed to. There happens to be a crazy tshuva of Rabbi Yankiv Emden, who speaks about a woman, a married woman that was mezana willingly, and she conceives a baby from the other man. She's carrying a mamzer. Rabbi Yankiv Emden says she could do abortion. She's allowed to do abortion. You're taking a life. Rabbi Yankiv Emden says she's allowed to jump off the roof and kill herself and the kid, because she's chayiv misa. In the time of Bezdin, if a woman's chayiv misa and she's 3 months pregnant, they don't wait till she gives birth. They kill the woman. Oh wait, no way. They kill the woman, they kill the kid. So this woman here, since Rabbi Yankiv Emden agrees to all those poskim, you can do to yourself what Bezdin would have done to you. So she could jump off the roof, kill herself and the baby. For sure she could just kill the baby.
Why?
Well, she could kill herself and the baby. Why can't she just kill the baby? As tshuva, she's doing it for tshuva. So Yankiv Emden allowed, he was matir abortion if she did it purposely. It's crazy. So Yankiv Emden was matir abortion if it was bemazed, not if she was raped.
Oh, you can kill.
It's exactly counter to what people would assume. But Yankiv Emden said if she was raped, you don't have this heter. If she was raped, she loved that because she could do abortion. Right. But if she did it purposely, she could kill the baby. One Avera leads to another. Avera, Gereris, Avera.
Deal. Don't just kill the baby. You can kill
Sure.
yourself.
You can't kill the baby.
No.
Abortion.
Yeah, abortion. Yeah, he allows abortion for sure. That's what he's talking about.
What's
Only if
what's
she did it
the
on
Kal
purpose.
The Kalma Chomer is that if
she kills herself,
She's allowed to jump up. She's
baby's
allowed to kill the
automatically
baby and herself. She's allowed to kill the baby and herself. What? Because she wants to keep herself alive, she can't deal with the baby?
Yeah.
No.
What do you mean?
I mean exactly what I said.
The only reason why you kill yourself.
I hear the argument. Anyhow, this is all. Listen, this is just the background. We're just exactly. If it happens to be by the launderer, Yankiv Emden says he fell because by the launderer, the Gemara Shabbos, the Gemara Kshuvas doesn't say he did any averos.
That's why he's saying he
So
fell.
Yankiv had a problem. Well, what Shuva is there? That's why he had to say he fell. The Shvus Yankiv is the one who said that even though there's no avera, you could still do it for kapara and everything. Anyhow, Al Kapanim finishes the Chidah. If you look into the sugya, you'll see the Marash Yafa might be right. The Yesh Lahelitz, we could defend him from all of the kashas. But then the Chidah says something else. It appears to me, even according to the Marash Yafa, who's machmir, and holds you can't do suicide even if you're a big Russia, but it's not mamish suicide. It's bechlal aches dimchem that the Eibush will say, why'd you take your life? Hainu isur l'chuda, it's forbidden to do it. Aval eina bechlal ma'abadas meladash she'ei misabdin olav. If someone really does suicide, no one does avelus for him. Says the Chidah that even the Marash Yafa, who's machmir, holds that if someone kills themselves because they think that they're chayiv misa, the Marash Yafa, who's machmir, only holds it's forbidden, but not that it's mamish suicide. Anyhow, what am I bringing all this for? It's not mamish suicide.
That people will still mourn you.
To the point that no one should do avelus for you. You're not considered ma'abadas miladas. You didn't answer it. Right. Why am I bringing this? Because it's interesting. No, because you see from here that according to many poskim, you can do to yourself what Bezdin would have done to you. Now this is talking about death penalty. What about Malchus by the Moranos, going back to our story? Right. So this takes us to number 2. Okay, we're slowly making our way through. Number 2 is the Sefer the Rabbi Yankov Beirav wrote. And in the end of his Sefer, he has a long piece that he wrote about bringing back the Smicha and being able to give those people that need Malchus, give them Malchus. But he says like this, wait a second. Initially, I have to explain Inyan Malchus. If somebody comes in a way of tshuva in front of Smuchim, but he was never warned. Usually to get Malchus, you need 2 Eidim to warn you. If you do this, you'll get whipped. None of these people that were Moranos in Spain were warned, and there was Vafila Eidim were not there. The shaila is, can they ask for Malchus? Can they do to themselves what Bezdin theoretically would have done? Im yechaylim lahalkoisem Malchus deraisi im lav. This mamish the same shaila we saw before about giving yourself the death penalty. What about Malchus? These people, they did something which carries Malchus, but it was in front of Eidim. There was no hasra.
So I'm saying practically
they're begging for Malchus.
Would not have been able to do it.
Yeah. But kvar kasavti derech kfir loy coming by to force them, obviously not a shaila. Vadai, for sure you can't give them Malchus without witnesses and asra. But when am I ki coming boilan? When is the shaila? When he comes derech shuva lebezdin, his mom is saying what happened. People were knocking on his door, and he tells Bezdin, Ani Sisi, I didn't have that I'm chayiv chorus. I want to be makabel Malchus to be potter from chorus, like he's brought in Sechta Sanhedrin. Fine. Then he says, don't quote me a Rambam in Perek Yud Ches of Sanhedrin. The Rambam says, Gzeres HaKosuv, if somebody walks into Bezdin and confesses on murder, Bezdin won't kill them or give them Malchus. You never do something based on their own Haidah.
Other can.
I was going to ask that question.
A person can
says no, so he says that's different. Hasam loy maril k'maka oisa derech oynish derech kfir. The Rambam's talking about for Bezdin to trust the guy's word, and therefore Bezdin to carry out a regular punishment that they impose, or for them to impose a punishment that they can't. But for a person to beg, please give me Malchus, I deserve it, or l'chayra, please kill me because I deserve it, he doesn't go that far, but l'chayra it's the same svara. But definitely Gabe Malchus, he's saying l'chayra Bezdin would be able to give based on the guy's bakosha, and it would have the full halachic status of Malchus to absolve the person of Karas. Now the only thing is, the Bezdin have to be smuchim. The Bezdin have to have smicha. The smicha finished in the year 400, roughly, 350. So where in the world will smicha going to come out of the ground? So that takes us to number 3. There's a statement of the Rambam. Actually, let's first see number 4, then we'll come back to number 3. Number 4 is a Rambam in his Pirush HaMishnayos. I'm sorry, it's small letters. It's the only print we had in Yeshiva.
What do you need smicha for? To believe the Eidim?
No, for Bezdin to give Malchus.
Carry it out.
Smicha, real smicha, you can't give Malchus.
Well, what essentially is giving Malchus when you believe in the Eidim? No.
No, giving them absolving them.
Actually administer.
The actual, Bezdin giving Malchus.
No machines used.
Yeah, it has to come from Bezdin. Yeah,
and it has to be
infused
with the
Bezdin. Sure, so it has to be Bezdin. It's only, or else it's not Malchus.
Just a guy hitting you.
Just a Fabrengen otherwise. Anyhow, number 4, there's a fascinating statement of the Rambam. Okay, so I'll paraphrase in English for those of you that are able to read and follow along. It's pretty straightforward. Says the Rambam. Number 4, I'm just going to paraphrase. Smicha is when you appoint a dayan. Why is it called smicha? Because it says that Moshe placed his hands on Yeshua. But you don't need smicha literally with the hands. What it is that the person that's fitting to be appointed Bezin will tell him, you, Rebbe Pliny, you are now Samuch, and you are able to judge Knossos. And from that point onwards, the person is Samuch, and is called a Elokim, and is called a full-fledged judge. Fine. It can only happen in Eretz Yisrael.
So he's still keeping that.
Right. The person getting, the person giving, the whole thing has to happen in Eretz Yisrael. Once you get Smicha in Eretz Yisrael, then you could technically go overseas and judge Dinei Knossos. But you can't give other people Smicha until you go back to Eretz Yisrael. Fine. Then he says like this. I'm about 8 lines in the middle of the line. Ule Inyan. When you give Smicha...
Say outside, because I can't.
Okay. When you give Smicha, you need at least 3 people. There needs to be a small bezin giving the Smicha. One of those 3 have to have Smicha. What about all 3? What about all 3? So it actually appears to be a debate between Rashi and the Rambam. Rashi holds all 3. The Rambam says like this. He says, yes, possess Safek. I'm not sure if all 3 need, but I think from the Gemara it seems to be clear that only 1. But he says it's Safek, but I think 1's enough. Then he says another thing. He says, I believe if Smicha has ceased, but all the Chachomim in Eretz Yisrael and all the Talmidim agree to appoint 1 person, that person will automatically be considered Samuch. He could be Soimech others. He can judge Dinei Knossos. You can regenerate. You can regenerate the Smicha. And he says, "What's?" Oh, that's a good question. He says, "What's my proof?" Because Hashem promises before Mashiach comes.
Jurassic Park.
Before Mashiach comes, there's going to be a bezdin. Vashiva shayftayich kvarishayna v'yatzayich kvartchila. Before Mashiach comes, there's going to be shayftim.
Steinsaltz wanted to make a business.
Right, yeah.
At the end,
So did Napoleon.
cutting edge.
So did Napoleon.
Yeah.
Right? and so did Rabbi Yankiv Beirav, as we'll see. Well,
Napoleon
so says
did.
the Rambam, before Mashiach comes, we need to have, Hashem promises in Yeshaya that we're going to have a Sanhedrin. But that means they have to have Smicha. You can't have a Sanhedrin without Smicha. Where are they getting Smicha from? You'll say Tchias HaMesim. This is happening right before Mashiach comes. This is a Hakdama
This
to
is making
Mashiach.
Mashiach come.
This is a Hakdama to Mashiach.
So the Rebbe would be
Procedure.
So who's going to give the Smicha?
No, they have to give. They have to give this. They have
Oh,
to
it's before
say,
Mashiach?
announce Mashiach,
Before.
yeah.
This is before Mashiach comes. So who's gonna Tchias Mesim is later. There's
Right.
nobody that says the Rambam. It
a
must
precursor.
be you could regenerate Smicha.
It's a good
That's his
logical
right.
point.
That's right. An interesting right. Since it has to happen before Mashiach comes, so before Tchias Mesim, who's going to have Smicha? No one's alive that has Smicha. It must be you could reintroduce
by
it.
everybody?
As long as everyone in Eretz Yisrael
Who's
agrees.
everyone?
Okay, so
All
we're
the
going to see. We're going to see. So now let's go to number 3.
What's the svara? The opposite
Worthy of
svara,
that
meaning,
Smicha.
how can you learn that other one? How can you learn that differently?
We're going to see some fascinating things.
No,
We're
I'm
going
saying
to
that
see.
before Mashiach comes,
No, we're going to see some fascinating things that's going to blow your mind.
What was the question?
All right.
how can we?
How can you make it?
The
How can the
Rambam's
Rambam not be
proof is
wrong?
ironclad. The
Yeah.
Rambam's proof is
Before
ironclad.
Mashiach comes, you have to have smicha. So how do you learn it other way? What's the other?
How does Rashi learn?
Right.
Okay.
One big miracle.
Yeah, sometimes.
No, but it has to happen
But
before
this is-
Tchias
no,
HaMesim.
okay, this
This
has
has to happen after Mashiach. I don't think so.
Yes.
It's not before.
The second.
No, we're going to see something. No, you'll hear something you'll like.
It's just
Any
Nah.
question you have?
No,
we're gonna
it's
see
soon.
soon.
That itself is a big
That's
argument.
it.
The Rambam
That's
quotes
Bechal
says afterwards.
Whether I'm
Rashi
talking
does
about it or
that.
not.
Yeah.
I just want to get the
But
thing
the other
out.
people would say no.
Anyhow, let's go back to number 3. Number 3 is the Rambam writing in his halachas, in Hilchas Sanhedrin. Now you have to analyze the Rambam's words. Good thing we have a lawyer here. Says the Rambam, Harei shaloi hoya be'eretz Yisrael ela samuch echad. If in the whole Israel there's only one guy with smicha, Moishiv shnayim b'tzidoi, he can take 2 random fellows next to him. V'soymech shivim ke'echad, and with the power of them 3, they could be soymech 70 at the same time, or zeh zeh one after the other. Va'achar kach, and after that, yei also hu v'hashivim bezdin agadol. So from one person you create a whole Sanhedrin. V'yismchu, and they in turn can give smicha to batei din achem, to other batei din. Fine, that's one thing. So in number 4, we saw the Rambam said he had a suffix about that, but he said he thinks 1's enough. Well, here he codifies 1's enough. Now he wrote Pirush Mishnayos first. Yeah, he wrote it in his 20s. He wrote it in Arabic. It was translated into Lashon Kodesh.
So something happened between the Persian Mishnayos
And
and the Mishnah Torah?
A lot of things change, but even Pirush Mishnayos says I have a suffix, but I'm pretty sure. He says it's pretty clear from Gemara 1's enough. So He's just going with that hunch over here.
Codifies it.
But now the Rambam says, Nirin li hadvar, now he says his second thing. It appears to me, she'im hiskimo kol achim, if all the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael agree, limnois to appoint dayanin, judges, one or a few, v'lismich and to be semich them, hari elu smuchin, automatically they're smuchin. V'yesh lohen lodun dinei knossos, and they can judge knossos and give malchus. V'yesh lohen lismich achim, and they can give smicha to others. So in Cain, he said, wait a second then. The Gemara in Sanhedrin has a famous story. The Romans, a couple decades after the Churban Bayesheni, forbade giving smicha to the point that it was punishable by death. The Gemara records the episode. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava and 6 of his students, they hid somewhere between 2 mountains. The Romans got wind, somebody dobs, it leaked. The Romans came running. Yehuda ben Bava told his students, run for your lives. They said, what's going to be with you? He said, I'll be like a rock that can't be overturned. Which means I'm not going to feel the pain. The Talmidim ran for their lives. The Romans caught Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, and they pierced him 300 times. He turned into a sieve.
Jeez.
And Al Kopanim, frek the Rambam, if you could, what's Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava doing? Even if smicha dies out, you could just regenerate it. You could reinstitute it. Why were they paying? They should in order that dinei knas shouldn't disappear. You always bring it back. He says, Ram says, because practically it's very hard. Even if you only take account those in Eretz Yisrael, Yidden are scattered. Some want to tiny means scattered in opinions.
Yeah, that's what it makes sense.
They won't all agree. They won't all agree.
2 Jews, 3 opinions.
Now continues the Rambam. This is the $1 million thing. If one person is a smicha from someone else who has smicha, he doesn't need everybody to agree with him. He can do whatever he wants. Because he has smicha from bezin. But the matter requires further clarification.
So it's saying he can make others?
So this last halacha seems to be strange. If there was one guy who had samuch from a samuch, he doesn't need other people to agree with him. He can judge dinei knossos like Kollel.
And he can make anybody else that he wants to be.
Right, so he doesn't say Elo Hari who's Somech, he could be Somech anybody else. You see, if the Rambam would be saying the din that if one guy has smicha, he could be Somech others, well that's what he said in the beginning of the halacha. If one guy has smicha, he gets 2 guys next to him. So what's the Rambam saying here at the end?
So it seems like he couldn't get 2 guys next to him.
But then he can't be Somech others, you always need 3 people.
Right, so that's the...
But he's talking about Dan Dinei Knossos at the end. He's saying, B'chlal, if one guy's, you could judge Dinei Knossos, he doesn't need anybody else to agree.
What's the chiddush?
What's the chiddush? Yeah. So when he says Hadovet Sarech Hecher, what's he talking about? The last thing that he wrote, or the whole thing that you could reinstitute smicha?
No, what he's talking about is earlier it says he still needs 3 people to do his
to give smicha,
to give smicha, or do anything as a bezdin.
But before he happened in the beginning of Allah, he's talking here about smicha. The last line he says don dinei knossos.
Yeah, but it's within giving smicha. You can't be a bezdin and do don dinei knossos as a one person. You just grab 2 people next to you. You give smicha. You judge. You can never judge on your own.
Okay.
Here it's saying it seems it's mashma. You could on your own if you have smicha. You can at least do the dinei.
With the other people that don't have smicha, but you could just give the other 2 people smicha.
Yeah, but it seems like he's a lone wolf.
It's hard to know. The fact that for 3 people to judge dinei knossos that all of them need smicha.
They don't all need smicha. They need to be with him.
All right.
On his bezdin.
So what's he adding at the end?
He's adding in here. He doesn't even have a bezdin of 3. He's literally a lone wolf. He can do it without the other 2 guys dragging him along.
No.
Why?
Fair enough.
Because of that. Then what's the nafkamina of the earlier? Earlier it says he can do it on his own, but he has to drag 2. Then the Rambam says he can do it on his right to give smicha, but to judge money.
Over here is saying that either the 80% of people in Israel don't hold to this guy. He doesn't have to care.
One is giving smicha,
because
one is giving dinner.
Right, so giving smicha, you need to drag 2 people with you. Right. Giving dinim, you can do it on your own. You don't even need to drag.
Unless what he means at the end is this one guy can take 2 others, give them smicha, and therefore he could judge dinei knossos. No one else cares about his bezdin. The joke's on them because he has real smicha. Which means the Rambam is really kind of
that's what the beginning is.
Okay, fine.
So there has to be a nafkamina.
No. Because she said, why is the Rambam repeating it? Because he just said Allah in the middle about a guy needing everyone to agree. So he says at the end, you should know that if it's that going back to the beginning, if it's one guy who has smicha, he can fight from the rest of Eretz Yisrael. Maybe he's repeating the halacha, the beginning of the halacha, but he's just contrasting it. Since we said in the middle that when everyone is when we're regenerating it, you need everyone to agree. But if one guy has it, he can fight on the rest. They don't have to agree to what he's doing.
I think if you look at the words,
Yeah.
so the middle's talking about if
Regenerating
Smicha is
Smicha.
dead and
Exactly.
you need to reconstitute
Yes,
Smicha.
yes,
So
yes.
for that to happen, you
need
got to
everyone
get everybody to agree.
Mashenkin, if one guy has smicha,
Exactly.
then what can he do?
The third part is talking about where it's not dead. There's still one guy.
Right,
It's going one to one to
So
one
he'll
to one.
take two other people and make a bezdin.
He can't reconstitute it because
He'll
he
give
needs
them
three.
smicha.
But you can at least
No, he can. But he said in the beginning of the halacha, one guy.
in the
can give
beginning he
smicha.
can. In the beginning it's saying that. But at the end he's saying. In the end he's saying even that one guy can still judge on dinei mamas alone
Knossos.
without anybody. Dinei knossos
No,
without
he needs
anybody.
he needs two other people. For
Why
dinei
would you
knossos.
say that at the
Because
end?
the Torah says you need a likim. You need to have three judges for dinei knossos. L'chorah, what he means
Ain't
is,
it tzarich
I would
das?
you don't need the whole Eretz Yisrael. He could just take two yabos. You know.
That's cool.
Yeah, he doesn't need them. In other words, even if 500 rabbis are against
back
him,
to the
but if he has the real smicha,
But it's not the same as the original. The original
It
thing
is.
is it was dead. Here it's
no,
not
the
dead.
the beginning of the halachas is one guy. One guy had smicha.
Yeah,
there's
one-
three dinim here. The first din was if one guy has, he can give to the whole Eretz Yisrael, and he says how that can happen. Then he
Right.
gives a second din. What if nobody has? You
Right.
need everyone to agree.
Okay.
The third thing is that, by the way, if one guy has, he can fight on the whole Eretz Yisrael.
When it comes to dinner.
Exactly.
That makes sense.
Fine. Which means that the point is, when the Rambam finishes off saying it needs further clarification, what's he talking about? The last point or the middle point of regenerating the smicha? So this was a major debate.
How could
So,
it be a question?
Which one do you think it is?
It's
going
got
on
to
the
go
middle.
on the third one.
Oh, okay, all right.
'Cause
So
it's
okay,
just
okay,
language.
Okay, all right. So
Why wouldn't you put tzarich? You have to look into it right after the second one.
So Rabbi Yankiv Beirav felt you're allowed to give smicha.
Or beyond both.
And what did he do? He got all the rabbis of Tzvas to give him smicha. He went there. He says, "What do you think about that? Of choosing one chacham? Maybe I should be the candidate." And they all agreed. He was a Rosh Hashiva.
He reconstituted.
So they all gave him smicha. What did he do then? He gave smicha to 4 talmidim. One of them was Rabbi Yosef Kaira. One was the Ramak, Rabbi Moshe Cordovero. One was the Mabit, Rabbi Moshe ben Yosef Trani, the father of the Marit. The Mabit actually, the Mabit was on the Bezdin, Yosef Kaira and Tzfas.
Wow.
The Mabit judged for 54 years, so it says on his kever, Don Yodin.
Wow.
Don, 54 Yodin, he judged 54
Is
years.
Sheva done?
No, but
Or
Don
maybe
Yodin, he
it's
judged
Biden
50,
shit?
maybe he's from Don, who knows? About 54 years, exactly.
The Yisachar?
Eldod Hadani. So, so then, another guy that got smicha was Rabbi Yosef Sagis. He was the Rebbe of the Baal Charedim. Them 4. Rabbi Yosef Kaira in turn gave smicha to his student Alshich. The Alshich in turn gave to his student Reb Chaim Vital. When Reb Chaim Vital was in Tzvas, during the day he learned Nigla by the Alshich. At night he learned Kabbalah by the Arizal. And he also worked a bit during the day to make a
That
parnasa.
was in the shul. They had 4.
There were many shuls.
No, the shul in Tzvas. They had the Arizal, they had the Alshich, they had.
The Alshich had different shul than the Arizal.
There was one shul. They had 4 of the pillars of.
They like to say, the Shlomo comes to Balmanagin, he was a Sheshiva, he was a Mashpeh. It's just folklore. We don't know exactly. We know there were numerous shuls. In fact, the Alshich for sure had his own shul where he used to darshan, and the Arizal would sometimes come to hear his drushes.
Right. So
But when the Alshich sees that Chaim Vital every night is learning Kabbalah by the Arizal, he figures something must be going on over there. So he asked the Arizal, "We make a chavrus in Kabbalah." Arizal says, "Alshich, your neshama, is not your drush is your field. The Kabbalah, the branch of Kabbalah I have is nishvadir." He said, "Try me out." They sat down, they tried learning, and every time the Alshich would fall asleep. Anyhow, but the Alshich gave smicha to Chaim Vital. So he went for 4 generations. Go to the next page. Number 5. Look at what the Mari Beirav writes. The Mari Beirav says like this: "V'gam kosavnu le'el." I wrote above. Shafilu yelonu kamos muchim, ein lonu koyach likvoya chadoshim. We'll come back to this soon, but one of the big tightness against the Mari Beirav is once you give smicha to people and you're able to have a Sanhedrin, you have to throw out the calendar and go back to being Mekadosh based on Edom seeing the new moon. And if you do that, then actually there should no longer be 2 days Yom Tov around the world. If you're going to go back to Mekadosh al Pi Re'iyah, and you're able to get news fast enough around, that anywhere that's able to get the news will just keep 1 day Yom Tov, and lots of things would change.
Who says this?
I'm going to come back to it. This was the time we're going to come back. So says Mari Ben Ridner, Ad Yavai Meirat said, until Mashiach comes, we're not going to get rid of the calendar, until a huge Bezdin comes. V'yavai minyan acher yoyser gadol minyan Reb Hillel Beis Dinai. In order to uproot the calendar that Hillel II made in the year 400, we're going to need a Bezdin which is greater. Says Mari Beirav, with all of our Smicha shenanigans, we're not as great as Reb Hillel's Bezdin.
Good, perfect.
V'yiskimu v'samchu li aniyat. Today says like this. The people in Svas, what?
This is exclusive to, they are a smicha, but they're not able to do the months? Is that what you
Yes,
said?
yeah.
Not that they're not a smicha.
No,
but
they could do the months, but they can't abolish the calendar that was made by a greater Bezdin. That's the issue.
But they have smicha.
Right. V'samchu li, he's looking. V'yiskimu. The rabbis in Svas agreed. They gave smicha to me. Ani Atzair, I the young one. Yankiv Beirav. He says, "Va'achar she'avra, after 2 or 3 months, kimat shechas shalom ha'yakar li k'mo shekar Buddha ben Bavazal." After 2 or 3 months after the Ma'aseh in Svas, it almost happened to me like happened to Yehuda ben Bava, the Romans killed. People wanted to kill me. He says, "Why?" Jekamu shnei malshinim alai. 2 informers, talebearers, came up against me. Aloi chomas bekapi. I didn't, no theft in my hands. Yishalem lehem Hashem polam hara. May God pay them for their evil actions. V'hutzrachti lotzes. I had to leave Eretz Yisrael. He had to ran to Damascus.
Who they tell on? Who was it?
Government probably.
The Ottomans?
Yeah.
No, it was before.
Precursors,
same
yeah.
time, yeah.
There were lots of Arabs there that terrible sorrows
The muftis and who knows
to
what.
the Yidden there. But he doesn't say what happened. But he says, I had to leave. Oz chashavti b'libi, I thought, Shemech chas Hashem nitra for Hashem. Maybe my whole dream is over. And the eitzei chutz la'aretz, I'm going to go out of the land. U'b'chutz la'aretz ein li koyach lismach, I can't give smicha to anybody. Like the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, ein smicha b'chutz la'aretz. Vokim no hasam, and the Gemara establishes that what that means is you need the soymach and the nismach to be in Eretz Yisrael. You need the guy giving the guy who seems to be in the Holy Land. All of my hard effort was going to disappear. Because kvaru boru, you see how hard it is. I finally got, most of the rabbis in Eretz Yisrael that were living in Svas. We're going to get back to it. I just want to read this inside. To agree, and as if that's ever going to happen again. Lachen, therefore, samachti larbos kenim. I gave smicha to 4 elders. Bechachma, elders in wisdom. Mivchar ma'achaverim, the greatest of the chevra. Hanim soim shom bizman azeh, which are found there now. V'akel yedeya. So the Chur is talking about after he came back to Eretz Yisrael. Right from the simple reading, when he came back to Eretz Yisrael, he was Soymach 4, or maybe right before he left.
He ran away?
I don't know. Okay, yeah, it's not clear. V'hakel, Hashem knows, kol kavanasi loy hoiseh, only l'shem shemayim. I'm not trying to look for authority to become great. It's only because the Rambam writes in Pirush HaMishnah that we saw, Kvar Veisei Yisrael. The Rambam says that when Hashem will prepare the hearts of man, these are the Rambam's Lashon, a beautiful Lashon. It was in the very small script of the previous page, if you want to see it there. When God will prepare, direct the hearts of man, and our kavan and our desire will be for it to heaven, then the Rambam there says, and we mentioned this before, all the people of Eretz Yisrael will agree to appoint one person, and the Rambam proves that from the fact that in the future there's going to be Sanhedrin before Mashiach comes. How's that going to happen? There must be smicha. And then he just finishes off, let it be fulfilled, what the prophet says, that Hashem will bring back those that he redeemed, etc. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so we said
Kaira.
Yosef Kaira, the Alshich, Reb Moshe Cordovera, the
And the
Ramak,
father
and
of
Reb
the...
Yosef.
He gave them.
Oh, no, hold on. Reb Yosef Kaira, 1. He gave smicha to the Alshich later. Reb Yosef Kaira is 1. The Mabit, Reb Moshe Trani,
Right.
the Marimat's
Did he
father.
give smicha to his son?
It's a good question. Not that we know of. The Mabit got smicha.
You have to be in Israel.
The Ramak, the great Makubal of Moshe Cordovera got smicha. Moshe Cordovera was 16 years old. Because this incident happened in 1538. Moshe Cordovera was born in 1522. He was 16.
He left Eretz Yisrael later, no?
No, he was Eretz Yisrael. There his whole life.
Did the
He passed
Moranos
away.
get the Malchus from the Beirut?
Yeah, it seems
hold,
like
wait.
it seems like this happened when he came
this
back.
Is the background. This is the background. Hold, so let's
It
just
has
say
to
what
be he
happened.
came back.
Let's just say what happened.
Who's the last one?
Rabbi Yosef Sagis, the Rebbe of the Baal Charedim.
Which one gave it to Reb Chaim Vital?
Rabbi Yosef Chaim Vital's generation number 4. The Maribe Rav gave to Rabbi Yosef Kaira. Rabbi Yosef Kaira gave to his student the Alshif. The Alshif gave Chaim Vital. Chaim Vital didn't give to his students because by then he was already out of Eretz Yisrael. Hold on. Who was against this? Who was against this? There was a great rabbi living in Jerusalem. Rabbi Levi ben Chaviv, known as the Maal Bach. His father wrote the Ein Yankov, Rabbi Yankov Chaviv. Their family also, they left Spain 1492. They went to Portugal. They were there for a couple of years, then they had to leave Portugal. And they went to Greece. And the Malbach also learned in that great yeshiva in Saloniki from Yosef Taitachak. And the Malbach ended up, exactly. Then the Malbach.
So there were no lovers of the Moranos.
The Malbach
Went to Sfas.
ended up coming to Yerushalayim. He was the chief rabbi of Jerusalem. And he was not invited to this convention that took place in Sfas. So when
But
he
it
heard
must
about
have been
it,
known that he was no lover of the what are they called? Not the Moranos. What's the other word? The crypto Jews.
The what?
Crypto Jews.
Was
Crypto, like Bitcoin?
Yes, crypto means
Send
secret.
the
That's what
Bible.
Bitcoin is. Secret.
so
You can upload it afterwards to Google Drive.
These are controversial.
hold on.
Way too.
So the Malbach was not invited. He was fuming. Now the Malbach, so he was a great rabbi in Jerusalem, and he wasn't the only rabbi. He had a number of people with him,
So it's not
and he
real
was a
smicha.
big guy, and he was very unhappy. And he wrote right away a scathing letter where he had 4 major kashas. By the way, the letter, it got so hot that the Maribe Rav mentions in one of his letters, don't forget what you were doing in Portugal. You know, in Malbach, he had to masquerade as a Christian in Portugal.
Wow, got
You're
similar-
slamming the crypto
Okay.
Jews. You did a little yourself.
Should we do it?
Or if 5 minutes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
It's cutting it tight.
Let's go.
What should we do? The Balabas decide.
Wait, you gotta go or?
No, it's he has to go. If he doesn't have to go, then we
10 minutes good or no good? No.
But that might have
Okay.
It's an option.
He has to have a minute.
On the cliffhanger.
So we were just getting it was just getting hot. We mentioned that the Malbach, when he was spending time in Portugal after the family was expelled from Spain, so he had to masquerade as a Christian. And the Maribe Rav makes mention of that in one of his letters. Don't forget, you come here to Yisrael and you're telling the rabbis in Sfas what to do. We know what you were doing in Portugal. Some of the Rambam's antagonists said the same thing about the Rambam, that when the Rambam's family ended up fleeing from Spain, they went down to Morocco. And the Rambam lived there for 5 years, till his Rebbe, Rabbi Yehuda HaKoyim, was murdered by the Muslims, and then the Rambam fled for his life. He ran to the port of Mitzvah Shabbos, he jumped on a boat, and they went to Eretz Yisrael. But apparently, according to some, the Rambam also, in Morocco, he had to masquerade as a Muslim. Now, the Rambam holds you're allowed to. The Rambam holds Islam is not Yehareg Val Yavra. Right. The Rambam holds you're allowed to. Here we're talking about masquerading as a Christian. There's actually, the Ibn Ezra had a son, Rabbi Yitzchak, going back in times of the Rishonim, who he allegedly also converted. And people were speaking and writing about him. We have a poem from him that he wrote. And Yitzchak Ibn Ezra says that it's funny. When it comes to the stories in Tanakh, you read about big crimes of big people, but what do? We justify it. We say, it wasn't really an Avera. We twist our hands backwards to for the people of Tanakh. He says, but when it comes to me, nobody takes the time to maybe justify or try and understand what happened to me. Everyone's so quick to judge and and curse me out.
Here's this rabbi trying to do it here.
Well, listen, it was a Marlbach that reached out first, so the Marlbach was just reminding him, trying to put him in his place.
Right.
But it got a bit sour. Now,
He was trying to stop them from getting forgiven when he himself did that, by the way.
Yeah, that's what he's reminding him.
well, so the question is,
He's saying his whole objection was because these guys were
we don't know to
crypto
what
Jews
degree,
and he
we
didn't
don't
want
know-
him to do it.
We don't know to what degree. Lavdavki was over Isha Christus. We don't know to what degree he did it.
But he was just reminding him,
You
you're
know,
of the same ilk.
That's
what it is.
I'll just throw in a
Yeah.
Chassidus
Why is
Maisa.
this guy coming
I'll just throw in a
in
Chassidus
and
Maisa that I
arguing
love.
He himself did that.
The Avnei
Saying not
Nezer,
really.
150 years ago.
But he really did do it. He didn't do it as bad, but he's still he's judging these guys when he was a little bit himself, even if he...
No. He had his different issue. His issue was that the Smicha itself can't be brought back.
But why? Because he didn't want it to be done on these type of
Because he
Jews.
believes that it was a Meshugas to bring back the Smicha.
Or did he believe
Not
that
because-
these Jews
no,
are doing
no,
it to try
no.
to save them and
No,
they're not worthy?
No.
Definitely not?
No, he's a good man. He said, I love them, but this is not the option. The option is to teach them Chassidus, let them do tshuva out of love.
Isn't there halacha that you're not? If one guy is supposed to not tell all the other people on the bezdin follow me, you're supposed to follow them. It's Pirkei Avos.
So where's the link?
All right. Okay, so let's
After
After
all
all
that, Benny doesn't stop until he hits 10 things. He's got to hit one. Something's going to stick.
All right. So no, there was a Chassidus Shemais, and now it's already off topic. It was on topic 2 minutes ago, but now we're 5 topics after that. The Avnei Nezer said quickly he had a chassid who never didn't have kids for years. He would always ask his Rebbe. The Avnei Nezer ignored him. It was once Simchas Torah, and the chassid sees that his Rebbe is in jubilation. Mamish b'simcha. Now's the time. He said, Rebbe, please, a child. The Avnei Nezer looks at the chassid and says, you want a kid that'll be a galach? The chassid froze like ice. He never asked for a kid again. The Avnei Nezer passed away, and he was succeeded by his son, the Shem Mishmul, also a great Chassidic Rebbe, at the times of the Rebbe Rashab. He was a big fellow. And there was one Simchas Torah, and everyone's dancing. And this chassid by now was chfeis, in his early 40s, no kids. He didn't have a heart to dance. He was sitting on the side. And the Shem Shmuel is getting everybody lebedik, and he sees that his Yankel's on the side of the room. He says, Yankel, come dance! And he sees a chassid Pasha is lifeless. He says, I'm going to give you a bracha to have a kid. Say Amen. And the guy says, Your father. My father what? And he tells him that your father said my kid's going to be a galach. So the Shem Yishmael all of a sudden became very serious. He closed his eyes. Nevertheless, from deswegen, say Amen. The guy said Amen. Later he had a son. He actually had a few boys. During the Holocaust, one of his boys survived. He masqueraded as a galach in one of these German towns, so the Nazis thought he was a goy, and he survived the Holocaust.
Wow.
So that's what Hamtakas Hadinin. The kid will be a galach, but that's not how he's going to survive. Anyhow,
Beautiful.
Al Kapanim. So the Ma'albach wrote a very sharp letter from Jerusalem with 4 major tainas against Mari Beirav. Number 1, he says, Rabbi, with all due respect, you don't know how to read the Rambam. If you go back to the Rambam in the first page, the Rambam says that in the Rambam in number 3 finished off saying the matter requires further clarification. The Rambam who invented this idea of bringing back the Smicha said himself is not sure. So how could you go and do this? The one guy that you're basing it on himself wasn't convinced. That's kasha number 1. Yep. Kasha number 2 is the Rambam says you need all the chachamim. There was no invitation sent to the rabbis of Jerusalem. He says, I know why. Because if you would have asked me, I would say maybe I should be the chacham. No, because you knew that I didn't agree to this whole thing, and therefore you didn't want to get me involved. But the Rambam says you need all the chachamim. How could you ignore? There was not one rabbi from Jerusalem invited to the event. And he says, Ki mitzion teitzei Sarah, udvar Hashem Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim can't be ignored. Maybe there were a couple rabbis in some random city in the side of Israel.
Yeah.
Yerushalayim is the center.
We love you.
Udvar Hashem Yerushalayim, right? I mean, a lot and Yamamil, it has its miles, right? But
You got to be worthy of
yeah,
Jerusalem.
right. Yeah. How could you not? And that was his second kasha. Pasha, the Rambam himself says, "Kol Chachmei Yisrael." You can't ignore Jerusalem. But then he says, "Listen." He said, "The truth is, I agree. The Rambam doesn't need every single one. Majority suffices. Majority always suffices in Torah. So there's no reason why here majority wouldn't suffice. Acharei Rabbim lahatas, you follow majority. But he says like this. He says, imagine you have a bezin of 3 people, right? 2 of them want A. The other guy is going to disagree. You follow the 2. What if beforehand the 2 people already know the third guy is going to disagree? So they tell each other, why bring him here? We're anyways not going to listen to him. We're going to pass him the way we feel, and that will be the psak. So who needs him to be here at all? So they won't invite him. It doesn't work like that. You need the miut to be present and then to become bottled to the majority. You can't not invite them to the convention. Right. He says, you would need us to be there, hear us all out, and then you want to tell me that I'm the miut? I'll say, okay, I'll bend my head and say, listen, I'm not happy with the result, but this is the way it works. You follow the majority.
Very good question.
Right. And then he says, I heard a rumor you want to invite me now for round 2. He says, it doesn't work like that. He said, if 2 people paskin a din, conveniently forgetting about the third, they can't invite him later for formalities because they're not really going to rejudge it. They already came to their conclusion. He says it's over. He says this thing is done. You could actually never redo it.
Where does he come up with that? That's his own thing. That's his
exactly.
own thing. That's absolutely, he just made his new law. It's tainted, so you can never. That's his own period.
His words are,
that's his own
there
period.
won't be a shaklataria without a mishpat kaidim. In other words, there's already going to be...
That's not right.
No, they're coming
law.
with the
He just
psak
made it
already.
up.
No, he says for sure. He said, no.
You decided, now you're
This is
Throw
administrative law
Everyone throw
101.
something
You come
out.
in front of the thing, you say, you didn't give me your process. Okay, well, you didn't hear me out. Okay, come in front of me, give me the process. Tell me your thing. We listen to, you're wrong.
No,
But
right.
he made up his own thing.
He's right.
He's the first person. It makes sense, but he's the first person that wrote this law.
The Maribe Rav I think he's going to agree to this, but he'll argue for a different reason. The 4th issue of the Marabach was...
Is there any precedent to
calendar.
that, what he says?
It seems to...
From where?
From the halachas of Bezdin, it seems to be correct.
Makes sense.
It seems to be. Anyhow, but either way...
First of all, you're saying that Bezdin's not going to be honest enough to rethink the whole thing. People don't change. The Rambam changes. People change. The Alter Rebbe change. Okay, so now you'll give me your arguments. You might change my mind.
They're only going to invite me because I'm screaming loud from Jerusalem.
Okay, so you might change my mind. It's happened.
But they definitely won't change their minds.
No, this screamer might change their minds.
No,
Give me the,
they might change.
Go ahead.
Hold on. The 4th issue. Hold on. The 4th issue of the Malbach was the calendar. The Malbach says once you have Gaidish Hasmuchim, you will have to get rid of the calendar and go back to. Right. Now, those are 4 issues. I want to tell you the Maribe Rav's answer, and then we're going to do number 6, the Radvaz, just outside. The Radvaz is really incredible. It's probably going to take another 10 minutes. That's what it's going to take.
tell me the answer.
Why is the calendar a problem? Why is
10
the
minutes
calendar
without,
problem?
it's like every time there's a question, the timer goes on pause. What?
The answer's 10 minutes?
You
Yeah,
can't
Maribe Rav,
qualify a greater
4 minutes,
Don't nullify
and then
the
6.
calendar.
So the Maribe Rav says point by point.
Why is the calendar a problem?
So the calendar's a problem because then what's going to happen is going to pass him based on Eidim. Then the 2 days Yom Tov that we all do is going to fall off. It's only because since we do the calendar, we follow the Minig Avisein, what our Zaydis used to do.
Rav said that Hill was greater and you can't abolish Hill.
That was his answer back.
That's his answer to the calendar.
Right. What was the calendar, Kasha? Once you knock off the calendar and you bring back
Eidim.
Kiddush HaChodesh with Eidim, then there'll be no reason, if they could, in theory today, if they would call you from Eretz Yisrael to here, you wouldn't keep 2 days Yom Tov. Once the calendar came, Hillel said like this: we know when the official days of Yom Tov are, but do the minig of Aviseinu. Your Zaydis, had they lived here, Bisman Abayis would have kept 2 days, you keep 2 days now. But once you get rid of the calendar, you have to go back to Kiddush HaChodesh, you would have to reanalyze each place. Would they hear the announcement from Yerushalayim in time of Yom Tov or not.
Especially
We have to
in time of Zoom.
reevaluate,
So theoretically,
right?
these days,
And
it's
therefore,
phone call.
these days, since
Zoom.
a phone call
Yeah,
or
Zoom, whatever.
WhatsApp would be enough, no place in the world would keep 2 days Yom Tov. Yeah, that's what would happen. That's what would happen. Anyhow, but either way, that was the fourth issue of
That's
the
not
Malbach.
making anyone smicha. Nothing to do with inviting everyone.
Until Mashiach comes.
Yeah.
No, but bringing back
He's
Smicha
saying,
is going to have
oh,
its repercussions.
Yeah, the whole Smicha idea.
So the Mari Berav said, "You want to know my answers for all four?" He says, "Simple." He says, "Lagabi number one," he says, "I do know how to read Rambam." And the Rambam in number 3 said, when he says the matter requires further clarification, it was on the last halacha, which because the Rambam in number 4 said the idea that only one out of the 3 needs smicha, and the other 2 can be yankel and beryl. He says, "I'm not sure, but it appears to be good." The Rambam wrote it's a suffix in his Pirush HaMishnayos. When the Rambam said the idea of reinstigating, he didn't write it's a suffix. So therefore, number 3 in his halachas, when he says that a matter requires further clarification, is talking about what he says at the end, which he already said in Pirush HaMishnayos he's not so sure about, that when you're giving smicha, it could be all 3 need smicha. Not to, I said Rashi Taka holds that. Masha'en came what the Rambam says in the middle, that you can reinstitute smicha. That says the Mari Berav, the Rambam, because the Rambam has a raya from Mashiach's times. What happened to that? Like, what was this? An ironclad raya. That's number
He
1.
did the 3. He gave 3 people. He doesn't have that problem.
No, but
No,
you have
to
to
give
get something
smicha, you need all 3 to have smicha, which he did in this case.
Well, first everyone appointed him, and then he appointed many others. Exactly.
Doesn't have that problem.
Yeah. Now, so this takes us to. Okay, what about the other
What are the other
shilas?
questions?
So the Mari Berav says like this. He says, no. He says, just like you agree, you don't need everyone, you only need the majority. Who said you need everyone to convene and then follow the majority? If when the Rambam means all, he just means the majority, maybe you only need the majority to convene. And since 90% of the rabbis lived in Sfas at the time, you don't need to send an invitation to Shalom. I Mitzion Teisei Seira. That's the way it should be. But if it happens to be that 90% are in Sfas, then that's the way it is. You don't need to invite Jerusalem.
I don't even know where he says you had to invite him. That was another thing the guy made up. Because if he's acknowledging that it's
Yisrael.
yeah, but he acknowledged that the Rambam himself means majority.
No. The Rambam says they all have to be there, but you can follow the majority's opinion on the matter. Like every Bezin.
Have somebody in Jerusalem.
Like every Bezin.
That's not what Rambam said.
No, but the Rambam says
bias
go.
against this guy. Either way, and now you're going to find out.
No, that's not what the Rambam's saying.
Because he's trying to pass along to which is nice and sweet.
The Rambam says all you.
Exactly, by the way,
This guy says you have a bias against
Exactly.
him.
No matter what we do now with you, you're done.
Tell me an argument that's different.
The Rambam in both 3 and 4, the Rambam says koil. The Malbach learns that means they all have to be there, but you never need a whole Bezin agreeing, majority. The Mari Berav said back, once you're saying majority suffices, so maybe, he said, you think the Rambam says you have to knock on
Everybody's
door
door in Israel?
Are you a
It's crazy.
chacham? How many Masechtas do you know? It
Crazy.
means you only have to have the roiv to convene. So the question, those questions fall off. And as far as the last one of Kiddush HaChedesh, we saw the Mari Berav's answer. He says no, even if we're smuchim, you can't overturn the calendar unless you're a greatest in heaven. Fine. So now we come to number 6. We're going to end with this, the Radvaz.
1 second, isn't it
This
a
is-
mitzvah on Bezdin to do Kiddush HaChedesh?
Yeah, but you can't. If you can't undo a takon of a previous bezin unless you're greater. No, so your hands are tied. Your hands are
Do
tied.
everything else. You don't do
Your hands
that.
are
By
tied.
the way, why would you say that he would agree that you can't re-argue the issue? He doesn't agree to that. He just says, I'm not even going there
Right,
to
right.
you
So
because
right.
I don't even have to.
No, some say, right. It could.
There's
be,
no way you would agree with him. He says, I don't even have to.
Yeah, but he said it could be that if it would be a circumstance that I needed
That
you,
you have to.
I can't
Can
do
I
you later.
redo it? Okay.
He said, I didn't need you.
I don't need you.
Right. No, there's nowhere.
Right. There's nowhere.
that he threw
But there's
that
nowhere
argument.
that he would agree. There's nowhere it says he would agree with him either.
Well, but
He's
listen,
just not getting
If he
there.
doesn't agree, he would have said, I don't agree with that.
Why? It's like the Supreme Court. They says that issue we're not even getting to. I mean, that's the way judges rule.
Fine.
They
Okay.
say this issue is a nullity. We're not getting to that issue. We don't have to.
Okay, point taken. Number 6 is the last thing, the Radvaz. The Radvaz, Reb David Ben Zimmer was alive at this time. He was also born around the year 1480 or something, so he was around the same age as Mari Beirav, Maralbach, around roughly the same age. He was also
This is Rebbe. Also that yeshiva.
Yosef Taitachak.
Yeah.
No, I don't think he actually learned there.
He lived in Sfas or in Yerushalayim?
Oh, he lived in Egypt.
Oh.
He lived in Egypt. He was a Rav in Egypt. In 1538, when this thing erupted, he was in Egypt.
Closer to Yerushalayim.
Later in his life, though, he moved to Tzfas.
Oh, maybe because of this.
No.
So I ain't going to
He
Yerushalayim.
agreed with the Malbach. He agreed
Oh,
with what he says.
so then he was going to Tzfas because he wanted to influence them.
I'm going to read the first 6 lines inside, and the rest I'll paraphrase. Okay. He says, on the words of the Rambam, Aloshen zeh samchu chachmei Tzfas. This is in his commentary on the Rambam. So if you take any old Rambam in Hilchos Sanhedrin, you'll see this on the side. He says, on these words of the Rambam, the rabbis of Tzfas, v'hagadol shebehem, and the greatest of them, that's Rav Yankov Beirav, lismach smuchin, to be soimach, lod to judge dinei knossos. V'loy Allah b'yadim, he says it didn't work. Which, by the way, l'chayre is not accurate, because it did work.
It did work, right?
So, but apparently it must be that this that we know it worked must have been clandestine. The fact of Yosef Cairo we only know gave the Alshich. For the Alshich we only know gave Chaim Vital. We don't know of thousands of people in Tzfas getting Smicha. There was a select few.
They were being careful.
Right. So apparently news came to Egypt that the whole thing has died out. It was given clandestine. You must say that. The Radvad says because it didn't work out, because the Chacham that was in Jerusalem was not masking. He says, but V'shalu SP, he says, during 1538, they sent a letter to me. They asked me when I was in Egypt, and they asked my friends, V'lo yiskan, we did not agree to the rabbis of Tzfas. We agreed to the rabbis of Jerusalem. And he has 4 shilas, not the same as the Malbach. The first one is the same. The first one is, he says that when the Rambam in number 3 says the matter requires clarification, he says it's going on the middle din, and he believes, he proves why it can't be the last one. I'm not going to get into it because he teaches it in a certain way. But let's go, the next child is interesting. This is an interesting point. If you go back to the Rambam in number 3, the Rambam had a shail on himself. If you could just regenerate, why did Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava get killed by the... Why were the Chacham so pained on the Smicha? You could just regenerate it. So what did the Rambam answer?
It's not easy.
Because it's hard, right. To get everyone together is hard. Why is it hard? Eretz Yisrael is not so big. Why is it hard?
Why is it hard? Look at this now. They couldn't get 5 guys together. You're expecting the Rambam's exactly right. Why is it hard? What do you can't see?
No, so the
That means you need us.
Why? So the
That's the question.
listen.
To Mendy's point.
The Radvaz says, wait, the Radvaz says, why couldn't they send letters to the whole Eretz Yisrael? He said, it must be, they have to convene in one sitting. He said, it must be the Rambam meant. If it just meant
That's
notifying,
why it's so hard.
why is it hard?
That's
it must
why
be
it's so
the
hard.
Rambam meant you have to convene together. And that's what it says. They're scattered all over the country. Exactly. He said, it must be the Rambam means they have to be convened in one sitting, b'maimed echad, and that was very hard because they're scattered amongst Eretz Yisrael.
So it's easy.
That's
assuming it's easy other ways. No,
Yeah,
that's
makes
assuming,
a big deal.
because he's making like it's easy to get 10 Jews to agree.
Not
No,
Just go one place.
no, they have to agree. In that one place, they have to
All
agree.
right. Okay, hold on. I have to be done in 3 minutes. So, I think everybody here had to be done 45 minutes ago. Anyhow, so what I don't understand about this is actually they did this. In Tzvas, the Maribe Rav said the majority of rabbis are in Tzvas. And he believes that you only the Chatzchila need the majority to sit in. And the Chayri, he got them all together.
One place, one time.
Yeah. So what's the Radvav of Shaila? I don't know.
Everyone.
No.
You don't need
no,
everyone.
but he doesn't go into that. No, he doesn't mention that issue before.
No, I know, but
that was the main kash of the Malbach was everybody.
No, the whole answer
because Malbach was offended. He wasn't invited. The Ravaz wouldn't be invited anyway, so he's not bothered about the majority.
The whole answer of what's his name, the Roiv that you answered in his answer is because it means if Roiv would do it, that means even the convening would only be.
If he holds everybody,
that's your own thing.
Fine. Well, then you should just ask a better kash. If you need everybody, you didn't have everybody.
Yeah.
No, he is, but he's proving it by saying that the Rambam says it's hard. He is saying
No,
that.
he's saying you need everyone to convene in one place. But why doesn't he ask? It's just solid. If you need everybody, the fact that they left certain chacham out
And the story, it's over.
Invalidates the whole thing. He just doesn't make that point in his arguments. Anyhow, let's go weiter. His kasha is undone. His kasha number 3. Hold on. Kasha number 3 is you're entitled to own your opinion. That's why there's extra space on the paper. Oh, you're arguing with me.
Even more, you're entitled. There's more space to find Nairos.
Listen. Okay, I trust you. The next kasha, so that's kasha number 2. Kasha number 2 is they need to be together, and he believes they weren't. Kasha number 3 is, in order for someone to get smicha, real smicha, they have to be able to paskin in every single halacha in Torah. And he says, "V'rochik be'eina." I don't believe that in the 1500s there's anyone that can paskin in the entire Torah.
Yosef Kaira?
No. Shulchan Aruch, yeah, but what about the laws of Tumah and Tara? We would assume that he knows. Radvaz says, I'm not so sure. It must be the Radvaz felt that he himself couldn't do it, and that Radvaz was one of the greatest people of those times. Oh, but listen, this is the bomb. This is the bomb.
Very humble.
He said,
humble.
Shh.
It's the opposite.
Hold on, Jerry.
Because I can't do it, Rav Yosef Karim must be not do it. That's the opposite of humble.
Okay, guys, let's get through this because
He knows. He doesn't know everything.
Yeah, but he's also thinking he's better than Rabbi Yosef Karim, for sure.
Say that.
That's exactly what he's saying.
I kind of stuck there into. He says he doesn't believe there's anyone today.
Anyone, clearly not Yosef Karim, because he can't do it.
If he
He knew Yosef Karim was alive. He knew he was one of the guys who got it. He knew he wrote the Shulchan
I
Aruch.
have a better thing. Maybe he could, but he thought no one else could do it. Yeah. I'm in Eretz I'm in Egypt, exactly. Anyhow, but his 4th kasha is incredible. His 4th kasha is that what was the Rambam's raya number? How did the Rambam know you could regenerate smicha? Because or else, what's going to happen when Mashiach comes? He says he thinks that raya is not a good raya. Why? So let's look at it's towards the end of number 6. In the small lines, small lines, about 8 from the bottom. Va'oi, the raya that the Rambam brings in Pirsha Mishnah is not a good raya to rely on. Because the Rambam says if you can't regenerate, how will you have a Sanhedrin when Mashiach comes? You need someone to have smicha. Hashem promised there will be a Sanhedrin. So says the Radvaz, what about Elijah the prophet? Eliyahu Hanavi has smicha. When is Eliyahu Hanavi coming back? Before Mashiach or after Mashiach?
Before.
So he says Eliyahu is coming before Mashiach, like it's written in the Ksuvim and Divrei Razal. He has smicha. He could be somech others before Mashiach comes.
It's so simple.
So in other words, because Eliyahu Hanavi is dafka coming before Mashiach, it's true the Sanhedrin will be there before Mashiach. But so too Eliyahu, he has smicha.
Wow. So it falls the whole.
He says even better. B'nai Ruvain. This connects to the 10 tribes.
Oh.
He says
the lost tribe.
The children of Reuven are going to come back and do mulchamas before Mashiach comes. Who's going to tell us that they don't have smicha? Maybe somebody amongst them has real smicha, and he will be soymech others.
But they weren't living in Israel. How can they do that?
Who's
the Bnei Reuven?
The 10 lost tribes.
Who was the Bnei Reuven?
Bnei Reuven is all the 10 lost tribes?
They're part of the lost tribes.
They were lost first. They were the ones that were lost first.
Because they were on the outskirts. They were on the other side of the Jordan. And
why is he saying they're going to come back?
They're clearly out of Israel. So that does not make sense.
We have a tradition they're going to come back and fight wars before Mashiach. They probably have smicha too. Or likely, possibly they have smicha. Now they're not in Eretz Yisrael. They're not in Eretz Yisrael.
They're not for the last 2,000 years.
They'll go back there.
No, how do they have a chain of smicha? No, how did they keep the smicha? Somebody died, and how do you give it over to the next, to the next, to the next? They're all out of Israel. Yeah, Eliyahu is still alive, and he has
it. What our time is like this. Somebody asked me, I think the answer is like this. Smicha has to be in Eretz Yisrael, but it doesn't say that if you give a chutz la'aretz, it doesn't take effect. That I've never said that.
Didn't we just say that the person who gets it and the giver both have to be in Eretz Yisrael?
But what if it happens outside? To say that it doesn't take effect.
No, but we just learned that one of the guys was sad that he was going to leave Israel and he wouldn't be able to continue it.
Because you're not supposed to. You're not supposed to. The Rav, he himself.
Yeah.
He himself. You're not supposed to.
Not supposed to,
but
so
the
maybe
Bnei Reuven were banished. They weren't allowed back in.
So it was einish.
They were banished. They were einish. They were banished. Anyhow, either way. But then he says even better. He says like this. He said, it's brought in Medrash, Mashiach's going to come twice. Mashiach will reveal himself in the north of Eretz Yisrael. Then he will subsequently become concealed, and then he'll reveal himself stage 2. He says like this, When Mashiach comes round one, it's not really Mashiach coming.
It's the whole 2 stages of Mashiach, or is this something totally
No.
totally different.
This is the Rebbe Nun Gimel Nun Daled on the when he was in the balcony, and then he concealed himself, and he's going to come back. So says the Radvaz, when Mashiach comes the first time round,
How long's coming here?
okay, we're gonna let's just finish up. He says when Mashiach comes first time round, now where Mashiach will have smicha from, he doesn't say. But Mashiach comes first time round, it's not mamish considered that he came. He's preparing the ground. He'll come, he'll give smicha, then Mashiach will disappear. During that time, the Sanhedrin will get going, and then Mashiach will come round two, which is his real coming. The second coming is the real coming. And then it will be that the smicha, so Mashiach will precede the Sanhedrin, but really Sanhedrin will precede Mashiach.
Where does he get that from?
He said, it says in Medrash, Mashiach will reveal himself, he will be concealed and come back.
Does he have a mocker for that?
Amr Medrash says there must be some. Yeah, there's a Rashi in the end of Daniel who says this.
No, but it
Mashiach
says,
will come.
it says also that the Sanhedrin will come from Tveria.
Yeah.
So that's
and it says
that's why he went to Tveria.
that's why he's
He had a shiur, he had a
going to
shiur.
reveal
In
himself
the Galil. In the Galil.
this guy went to Tveria.
No, I know, but I'm saying this.
Exactly.
Wow.
Oh, so says the Radvaz. So the Radvaz says that he says Tak in Pirush HaMishnayos, the Rambam was certain that you could regenerate it. He thinks though in number 3, the Rambam in his halachas
Read that
retracted
Rashi in Gemara.
or he says the Rambam wasn't so sure. Why? The F, she says in the last line, because of my last kashas and others which he didn't write, maybe that's why the Rambam backed off from what he said in Pirush HaMishnayos, and that's why the Rambam says the matter requires further clarification. Because he understands when the Rambam writes it needs clarification, he's talking about the smicha regeneration. So that's the Radvaz. So it's a fascinating thing.
I like it as he says in Kamal Maharach. It's a little bit late.
Now you should know that, listen, I'll just say two more quick points. One of them is that in the 1830s, many of the Vilna Gaon students went to Eretz Yisrael, and they settled in Jerusalem. Yisrael of Shklov, Mendel of Shklov, and others. And actually they set up many of the Gros Minhagim, like not wearing tefillin, Chol Moed, and other things, to be the minhag of Yerushalayim. These fellows, they wanted to bring Mashiach already, right? But the Rambam says you have to the Sanhedrin first. Then you need smicha. Where we can get smicha from? But the Radvaz says, Daseres HaShvatim. They wrote letters, numerous letters, and they sent shluchim to travel far and wide, to India, to everywhere. And we had the text of the letters, where it says that I know that you guys are still around. I hope that some of you have smicha. Come back to Eretz Yisrael. Let's get the
Looking for the
Sanhedrin
lost
going.
10 tribes?
Yeah. In order to get the smicha back, to get the Sanhedrin, to get Mashiach. It happened in the 1830s.
Wow.
The problem is the shluchim came back.
These are
empty-handed.
students of the Vilna Gaon.
Yeah.
Woo!
Shluchim empty-handed.
Also, the name Moshe might have
Right,
They're the original Tzvatis.
exactly.
You have smicha, come to 770 immediately.
Yeah, there's one more point. There's one more point. Why? The one more point is, like you guys asked, the Eliyahu and everything is so obvious. So why did the Rambam jump to drastic conclusions that you could regenerate? And the Maribei Rav believed it, and not just that, all the Chacham Mitzvahs believed it. Why? How come nobody thought of this Eliyahu thing of the Radvaz? So the truth is not so simple. There was a big question that was asked 700 years ago to the Trumas Hadeshen, or he deals with the question. He asked it himself. When Eliyahu Novi went above, what happened to his wife? Was she allowed to remarry? Her husband didn't die. You know, the Medrash says Eliyahu went with his body to Gan Eden.
Eliyahu or Pinchas or
Eliyahu is Pinchas.
We don't know if it's Pinchas or not. But Eliyahu, we know that it says in Malachim, Eliyahu went up
his
to
wife
Gan
didn't
Eden.
live that long. She made,
No, but when he went up,
Yeah, Eliyahu was
could she
married
have
at the time when
remarried?
he
he's
died.
asking a halacha question
very-
or actually what happened.
You don't think
Halacha
he married
question.
after his first wife died?
It's a halacha question. Practically,
Anyhow,
you want to
also,
say
Yeshua ben Levi went to Gan Eden with his body. If it ever happens, in
Went
Trumas
to Gan Eden
in
alive.
fact, the Trumas Edition says, what if it happens,
His wife
any one of
remarried.
us? Because it says in Masechta Kiddushin, a woman can remarry either via divorce or through the death of the husband. The husband going into Gan Eden with his body, that's,
He's not dead.
So the Trumas Edition says she's allowed to remarry. He isn't dead. The Pasuk says you're not allowed to live with the wife of your friend. Eliyahu is not your friend, he's an angel. He's no longer in this physical world. He's become heavenly, he's become godly as an angel.
Moshe
He's an
Rabbeinu
angel.
and Shemayim.
In fact, the Medrash Talpias says that when did Reuven live with Bilhah? Right?
Yeah.
When was that?
That was
But
when
yeah,
Yaakov was leaving.
they
Because
kept
it
the
was
door.
right after Hashem called Yankov Yisrael. It said in Medrash Talpias, or it says Vayikra loy Kel Elokei Yisrael. Hashem called Yaakov Kel. Says Medrash Talpias, since Hashem called Yaakov Kel, he became an angel. So all of his marriages were off. So Reuven Chaptaran. That's what he says. It wasn't married.
That way, Martin says that Reuben like
Right, that's according to that it was.
Right, so here you go, because she wasn't anyhow.
Anyhow.
So exactly. So Rav Yonis and Eibeshitz, so what they and others what they explain is, if Eliyahu Novi Mamish became completely ruchni, so he's a himmeldika person. His smicha no longer has bearing in his physical
Ain't
world,
Tervish, it's
and therefore
down
when he
here.
comes
It's not
back,
in
his
Shemayim.
smicha is worthless.
It comes back, it's going to be physical though.
And
So then he needs a new smicha as a new person.
so the Chassam Sofer has the tshuva where he says, does Eliyahu Novi have to keep mitzvahs? If he comes back as a spirit, not. If he comes back in his body, he does. That's what Chassam Sofer says.
So that would
So
seem
that
like
would
he
mean
would
the
still
smicha is still
he
good.
would have his smicha again.
But that would mean
But
if he
does
comes
that
back in his
intervene-
body, his wife still married to him. You know,
Yeah. Does that intervening time as
His,
an angel?
his wife can't remarry because maybe tomorrow he's going to come back in his
Yeah.
body and then she's
Yeah.
still married. The Truma then says no. Once he left, he became an angel forever.
That would say that
So
it's
then,
off.
so that according to that gang, he became a spiritual being. He's no longer he's no longer subject to the laws of Elam Hazak Gashmi. His smicha is irrelevant.
Wow.
And then the only way to bring back the Sanhedrin before Mashiach is to reinstitute the smicha,
Right.
like the Mari Berav and the Rambam.
Well, the other stuff that
But the Radvaz holds that
Mashiach.
Eliyahu Hanavi still remains when he comes back in his body. You know, he's fully, under the scope of halacha of the physical world. His smicha is relevant, and therefore you can't jump to the conclusion of regenerating the smicha.
And therefore his wife can't get married
Exactly.
either.
Exactly. Yep.